We have okay. Alhamdulillah. ثم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد. Okay. Surah Hud. After Surah Hud comes Surah Yusuf. Ahsan al-Qasas. It is the best of the stories, the most excellent of the stories. And in this qissa, the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, we can enter into the discussion about the youth. Because of Yusuf alayhi salam, Binyamin alayhi salam, his younger brother, and ikhwat of Yusuf, so the brothers of Yusuf. The topic of children generally does not come up in the Quran when you're talking specifically about children. So, first we have to define what a child is. A child in Islam is somebody who is male or female, has not reached the stage of maturation where they are capable of reproduction. So, when they are capable of reproduction, when they become baligh, then in Islam and in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are considered to be adults. Now, whether that happens at a younger age, whether it's happening at 10, 11, or it's happening at 12 or 13 or 14 or 15, or at the very latest in Hanafi fiqh, at least by 18, if there are no indicators, then they will be considered to be baligh because they have reached that age, meaning they will be considered to be and treated as an adult for dunya. This is important. This is critically important because when we're saying in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this means that they are not accountable. Prior to reaching the stage of maturation as a human being, they are not accountable in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After they reach this stage, they are accountable. And this is what we're going to call the youth. So when you're talking about the youth, we have to make sure that we understand we're not talking about children. And then when we're talking about when we're talking about the youth, we have to also understand that we must get out of the mode or the habit of following along and adopting certain premises which have been injected into the psyche of Muslims and Muslim society and Muslim culture, that a young person is not an adult until they are 18 or 21 years old. And mind you, that even in non Muslim society, you do not have to go back that far to see that this is a relatively new, if you want to call it a legal understanding, or if you want to call it a societal understanding, this is a relatively new understanding. So even if you just go back, this is the 21st century. If you just go back to the 20th century, you can go to a place where you are not going to find that. And they would treat again basically with the same level of understanding that 13, 14, 15 years old, that by this time now you had to accept a certain level of responsibility. You were treated like an adult. There were certain rights and privileges that were afforded to you because you had reached that age. There were definitely expectations. And there are a lot of uh, grandparents, for people especially my age, and a little older. Their grandparents were people who got married when they were in their early teens, so they got married when they were 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. And this is not a phenomena which is restricted just to the U.S. This is something that go throughout history, and you can go to other parts of the world, and still largely, and a large portion of the world today, it's still like that. So this notion that young people are not adults until they are, and we're talking about adults, meaning like technically we'll call them adults at 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. But even still, you'll find that within the community, and within some of the complaints among those young people, that they are not treated by their elders with a level of dignity and respect that they would associate with an adult until they are towards the latter end of their 20s, maybe moving into their 30s. And in some respects, not even then. So this is extremely important because this mindset acts as this psychological mindset, and this it acts as a barrier between a proper understanding and developing a proper understanding in our young people and how we should regard our young people according to Islam. This is according to Islam. And when we say according to Islam, the whole point of Islam is the fact of, again, that this reality and this ultimate truth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed us here for a reason, and that we are mortal. So our own mortality and the fact that our time in this dunya is finite. It is ajalan musamma. So it is for a specified time period. So by the time my child reaches this stage of puberty and now is a mature adult in Islam, their accountability begins. Meaning that if they are not prepared by the time they reach the stage of puberty, and their understanding of Islam and their practice of Islam has at least not met a certain gone to and met a certain bar, then what's going to happen is that there's other factors that are going to kick in now regarding their nuffs. There's going to be certain hormonal imbalances and development. Again, this continuation of the physical development. And if a person says, "Well, that's the reason why we don't call them adults," well, then technically, according to Islam, a human being. Especially a male human being does not reach a state of full maturity until they reach the age of 40. Hence, the reason why Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and a lot of the Anbiya alayhimu salatu wasalam, that their nubuwa was activated right at the age of 40. So this is considered to be the age of full maturity. So the process of maturation is something which is continual. It's not something where there's a light switch which is triggered, and now like, oh, there's a bright light, and and there's mashallah, and then that was it. One minute they felt like a child, and the next minute they felt like an adult. And if it hadn't been for the flip of that switch, well, who knows what would have happened then. So that doesn't exist. So this process of maturation, that's a given, and that's an understood thing. This process of development, that's an understood thing. But when does this accountability begin? The accountability begins again at this stage of puberty. So on average, you're talking about around the age of 11 to 13 years old. So this is that time now where uh, uh, they're going to be considered an adult. And up into that, this is the time where Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that when do we start teaching our children to make salat and have them make salat? Not when they're teenagers, when they're 7. And by the time they're 10, by the time they're 10, now there should be repercussions. There should be, if they don't make salat, if they're not keeping up with their deen, there should be repercussions. There should be punishment. And it's your responsibility as a parent before that child reaches the stage of puberty. So before they hit 11, 12, 13 years old, they must have already have been habituated towards the salat and fasting and truthfulness, and those aspects regarding their character and their akhlaq and who they are as an individual. What is right, what is wrong, what is truth, what is batil. How do you establish your priorities, who you are and how you identify yourself and how you develop your identity as the abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This all takes place before the age of puberty, and then that process continues and it develops after they hit puberty, but they're going to be considered as an adult. And if you look, even amongst the Sahaba, you'll find so many examples of this level of maturation that exists. Where there was Ali radiallahu anh, who was a child at the time he took his shahada. Then you have Zayd, you have Aisha, you have Fatima, you have Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, you have Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh. So you have all these examples now of these young people that when they came into Islam, and immediately it was they were exposed to Islam on a level of an adult, and they took it on the level of an adult. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, including in Surah Yusuf, at no place in the Quran does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala address Ya ayyuhal atfal, oh you children. No place in the Quran. Ya ayyuhan nas, ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, etc., so on and so forth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now addressing adults because you are accountable, you are answerable. So the who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking to directly in the Quran? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to the adults. Indirectly, now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to the youth. And of course, the Quran is also for young people. But if we think about it, the way that young people, when you're talking about that earlier age, before they hit this stage of puberty, and from the time they're born and to this age of like 11, 12, 13 years old, the vast majority of what they are doing and the vast majority of what they are learning, it is because of an atmosphere and it is because of an environment. So, how does a child learn how to eat? We don't have classes. We don't bring a teacher in. We don't have a book for them and say, okay, well, this one, now say that this is a spoon and this is a fork and this is a butter knife and this is a steak knife. You're not ready for the steak knife yet. So, we don't go through all of that. So, what we do is we, in that environment, the child, by existing in the environment of where these mundane activities are taking place, they understand now how to, through what? Through their listening and they are looking. So they are engaged in that environment, they are engaged in that atmosphere, and they are picking up these cues within that environment, these educational cues within that environment that now is helping in this process of development and understanding what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it, how they're supposed to be, how they're supposed to act, even the process of cause and effect. They're learning it from the environment itself. So what happens is that when we negate this and we say that all that they're just kids, and even as youth, we dumb down Islam for them. And now Islam is just basically it is a very a very basic is not even a very generic representation of fiqh. And this is how you make wudu. This is how you make ghusl. This is how you make salat. This is how you fast. There's not really any details. It's fiqh al-muyassar. It is like the easiest level of fiqh. And then in aqidah, again, it's all the way down to the basics. And what happens is that during that, when they become, now they hit this adolescent stage and they enter into puberty, and now you have these basically young adults. That is a correct term. They are young adults. They are now, because they haven't been introduced into a proper environment necessarily. Some are, some aren't. But we're talking about when they aren't in an environment of deen, and they aren't in an environment where akhlaq and the aqidah of aqidatul Islam, the aqidah of Islam, is something which is emphasized and it is active in the lives of the adults that are around them. Those human beings, whether it's their neighbors, it's their teachers, it's their parents, it's their extended family members, it's their friends, whatever the case may be. If it's those individuals that they find themselves in the midst of, if they don't see Islam active in their lives, so if they don't see this practical application of what's in the Quran in the lives of the adults that are around them at that time, then the same way they are not picking up these cues. They are not learning how to take that Islam and put it into practice. Again, it's just like some hollow theory that is presented to them from time to time, when everything else that they're seeing, again, from their neighbors, maybe from their family members, in the academic and the educational environment, in the schools, also from their friends, etc. So now all of this is contradictory to what they may be learning in a quote unquote Sunday school environment. Even though it's at a basic level, it's still enough where they're seeing that like these two things are not matching up. And this is what a lot of times, this is what young people that they bring to the table, and they say that, look, um, I'm looking for something more. I needed like some substance. I needed, when they get older and they start struggling with their salat, and they start struggling with like these very real aspects of being an adult and a human being and having responsibilities and dealing with the external world, and they're facing these real life challenges, and they're challenges that are moral challenges, they are ethical challenges, there are challenges, theological challenges, there are philosophical challenges. When they're facing these challenges, they now find themselves ill equipped to be able to meet those challenges, because they have been in this protected and sheltered environment where they're constantly being told that they are just children. When you look at Islam, Islam doesn't allow for that. Not only that, but we are, as adults, we are held responsible, and we are now accountable. We are accountable in two ways. Number one, that we ourselves accepted the premise itself that these are our children, and we don't recognize them as being young adults and being adults in the sight of Allah. And if they die, that they are accountable in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And number two, that if we are not practical examples of the Quran and of the Sunnah, and if you and I, as adults, as community members, as family members, if we don't create an environment and an atmosphere of deen and obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we, of course, are going to be held accountable for that. Why is this important? What does this have to do with tafsir? Because last night we moved in Surah Hud. And as we moved into Surah Hud, we began the Qasas al-Nabiyyin, the stories of the prophets. And one of the questions that I myself, in my young experience, have yet to hear anybody ask, and that is that when these peoples are destroyed, what happens to the children? I have yet to hear anybody ask that question. What happens to the children? So we hear about the Qawm al-Ad and Thamud and Midian and Nuh alayhi salam and Lut alayhi so what happened to these kids? Because it wasn't just adults. It wasn't like this like you had all of these established societies and cultures and everything and civilizations, and there was no children. There was children. What happened to the kids? So you never hear anybody ask this question, because again, we're not thinking about, again, the children in earnest. So what happens to them? Why doesn't the Quran mention them, or what mentions what happens to them? Because it's not in a crass way. It's not relevant, because they're not accountable. They are, and only even in regards to aqeedah, when you're studying aqeedah, it becomes now it's not a primary issue. What happens to children of non-believers when they die, or what happens to the children of believers, or what happens to children in period before they reach this age of puberty? What happens to them when they die? It's not even considered a primary issue in Islam. It is a secondary issue, meaning that it's dhanni. We don't even know exactly for sure. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just, and Allah is going to handle the situation according to his knowledge and according to his wisdom. But what we do know is that the adults are the ones that are addressed by the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam and the Rusul. The wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the kutub from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are directed towards the adults, those who have reached that stage of puberty. And what we do know is that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the punishment, that the punishment was meant for them. Now, because of the adults in that society, because of that community, because of those parents, because of those family members, those children also suffered the same fate. This is because of the adults. because the adults wouldn't take the lessons, because the adults didn't want to learn, because the adults didn't want to change, because the adults didn't want to face reality, because the adults did not want to accept the truth. So because of that, now, with the exception of those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved and they left with the Anbiya alayhimu salatu wasalam, their respective Nabi, the ones that left with them, with the exception of them, everybody else is laid low. Everybody else. Because of whom? Because of the adults. Who's an adult? Everybody who has hit puberty and older. So we have to keep this in mind that we cannot, it's a very ajib thing, because when you look at education, our young people go to school, and in middle school and in high school, because that's the ages we're talking about, right? So middle school and high school, they're learning algebra, calculus, chemistry, advanced English. Forget just advanced English. They're learning usually a minimum of 2 to 3 different languages. If you go other places in the world, 3 is like bare minimum. Like that's a starting point. You go other places, I feel so inadequate because like you how many languages you speak? 6, 7, 8, and that's common. That's common. And advanced mathematics and science and chemistry, biology, so on and so forth. Subhanallah, trigonometry, getting into physics. I mean, subhanallah. And this is all before they leave high school. And how is it that we motivate them and we push them and we tell them that this thing is so important? But then when it comes to Deen, now it's kind of like it's just reduced to this first or second grade kind of very elementary presentation of Islam, as if Islam now, and because of that, what we're doing is, and in fact, what we're saying is that Islam lacks that sophistication, and it lacks that substance and that advancement. It lacks those components which you are going to need, and that you have at your disposal to be able to now tackle the challenges and face the challenges that as a young person and as an adult, as a mother, as a father, as a son, as a daughter, as a husband, as a wife, as an employee, as an employer, etc., so on and so forth. That this is all you're going to need. If you lose everything else, do not lose this, because this will get you through no matter what. So if that is not what they are learning, if that is not what's being presented to them, because we are telling ourselves that when it comes to our young people, well, that's too much for them, or it's too heavy for them. But we don't do it with anything else. We don't do it with anything else. The vast majority of young people today, that if I were to give them, if a new piece of technology comes, right, more than likely, I am going to have to ask them, can you please show me how to work this thing? Now, granted, that's a sign of my age, but I'm gonna I'm gonna have to ask them, like, okay, and more than likely I'm gonna have to ask that. Will you okay, do what now? All right, whoa. Go back to the beginning. Start over. Okay, what? Then okay, then this and then that. And this young person is going to have patience. Is gonna have to have patience or forbearance with me. Yes, uncle. Yeah. Then there you go. Good job. Yeah, good job. You did it. Yeah, you. All right, you're learning. Because again, they're intelligent and mashallah, and they're extremely gifted. And if we do not give this Quran importance, and if we do not share with our young people the depths of the Quran and get them now to take um, that ability, right? That potential that they have as a human being, and not just apply it to academics, but apply it to their deen. And now through their deen, apply it to their academics. Then what ends up happening is that now our young people will not be able to properly access the Quran. They will not be able to properly access Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's fadl. They will not be able to develop properly a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that pit and that darkness, that void that lies within each and every one of us when we are disconnected from Allah, or we are distanced from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They will suffer through that. Some will make it, some won't. They will be left vulnerable to becoming victimized, used, and abused by the world that is around them, that doesn't care about, again, stepping on their necks or destroying them for the sake of whatever agendas and motivations may be, first and foremost in their mind's eye. So this is something that we as parents and as adults, that when we're talking about Quran during this month of Ramadan, that when we're talking about Quran and when we're talking about our young people, it must go in this order of who is a young person, how do we define who a young person is, what is a child and what is an adult, who is the Quran initially, who is it directed to, who is it who is the focus of the conversation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and what is our responsibility as adults and as parents and as community members regarding the practical application of this Quran and the depth of understanding of this Quran, so that we can create an environment and an atmosphere of Islam where it's something that can be seen, it is something that can be witnessed, it is something that can be experienced by our young people by just being around us. Because when we're talking about the youth and we're talking about children, on Yom Al Qiyamah, may Allah have mercy on us. On Yom Al Qiyamah, where everything is nafsi nafsi, brother will flee from brother, parents from their children, uh, everybody is on their own. Your best friend, your BFF, not on that day. All your likes and all your likes and your followers and everything and the little hearts they send up on your Facebook, on your Twitter account or what have you, again, beyond me. It's not going to matter. Children in that day are now going to blame their parents. It's his fault. It's her fault. I was young. They're going to blame their parents to the extent that, if you remember when we went over Surah Al-A'raf and we went over that ayatul alastu bi rabbikum qalu bala shahidna. One of the reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states in there that unless you should now blame those who came before you, blame your forefathers, blame your ancestors, blame your parents, because now it's their fault that I didn't know. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes that excuse. That's how intense and that's how deep this gets. That one hasana, a parent is not going to be willing to give it to a child, and a child is not going to be willing to give it to a parent. And if you and I are not particular, the way that Yaqub alayhi salam was particular about raising his children, first things first, we do not get to decide how they turn out. And Yaqub alayhi salam in the Qisatu Yusuf, in the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, you have two sons, you have sons of Ibrahim of Yaqub alayhi salam, and now you have other sons of Yaqub alayhi salam taking the son of Yaqub alayhi salam and throwing him in a well out of jealousy. Right? And they lied to their father. But at the same time, if you look at the fitya, this is yesterday was Yom al-Jumu'ah, but if you look at Yom al-Jumu'ah, you see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Kahf, it's named that you're talking about the people of the cave. Who are the people of the cave? They were youths. Who are these youths? These youths, they were young people that their community had failed them. Their families had failed them. Society had failed them. Why? Because they were engaged in kufr and shirk. They had become so engrossed and immersed in this dunya that they had failed them. And now it was these young people that now separated themselves from that community, from that environment. You see, that environment. They left that environment and they isolated themselves to seek safety from who? From their families, from their community, from the society that failed them. So who did Allah have rahmah on? Allah had rahmah on them. Who did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in the Quran? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took their story and Allah put that story of them in the Quran. It is now a chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Kahf. This is the youth. So we cannot underestimate the potential and the ability of our young people. And we must approach our young people with Islam in a sophisticated and a very structured mode and methodology, so that way our young people are equipped to do whatever. MashaAllah. whatever you want to do now, you have your Islam. You have your sword, you have your shield, you have your armor. Your intellect has been refined, it has been trained. Your heart has been cleansed and purified. It has been prepared. You are attached to Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This Quran is now a part of you. When you read Quran, Quran speaks to you. It is kalamullah. And now you go out and do whatever. Go get married, have kids, get an education, become a whatever it is that you want to be, as long as it's halal. You want to be a doctor, you want to be an engineer, you want to go into IT, you want to get your own, you want to start your own business, whatever it is that you want to do. But you'll do it through your Islam, and you'll do it maintaining your attachment and your connection to your success in this dunya and the akhirah. Your aqeedah will be preserved and protected, and it will preserve and protect you. Anything else, it is a crime. Anything else, it is a crime. And we talk about humanity, we talk about crimes against humanity. What greater crime is it for you and I, as parents and as community members who have read the Quran so many times, we have lived so many years, we have a certain degree of life's experience under our belts? What greater crime is it than if you and I, that if we do not prepare our young people for a world that we know that is brutal, it is unforgiving, it is merciless, and it destroys and it consumes human beings on a daily basis. And some of them, they're very well educated, and some of them, they're very wealthy, some of them, they are very well regarded. Some of them have status and power and position, but it doesn't matter. It consumes all these different flavors just the same. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may Allah, first of all, may Allah protect our young people. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us for our shortcomings and our deficiencies as community members, as parents, as community leaders, as teachers. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the strength and the courage, the backbone to be able to face truth and reality and be able to change, to take our Islam, the Quran and the Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to move it from theory to practical application, so that we create together, you and I, we create an environment and an atmosphere which is conducive for the obedience of towards the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the love of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us, accept us. May Allah give us the ability to die as Muslims. May Allah resurrect us as Muslims, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enter us into Jannah bi ghayri hisab as the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Jazakumullahu khairan jaza wa akhiru da'wan and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin. والحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم.
Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, today I will be reciting the first quarter of the 15th juz. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله لنريه من آياتنا إنه هو السميع البصير. وآتينا موسى الكتاب وجعلناه هدى لبني إسرائيل ألا تتخذوا من دوني وكيلا ذرية من حملنا مع نوح إنه كان عبدا شكورا وقضينا إلى بني إسرائيل في الكتاب لتفسدن في الأرض مرتين ولتعلن علوا كبيرا فإذا جاء وعد أولاهما بعثنا عليكم عبادا لنا أولي بأس شديد فجاسوا خلال الديار وكان وعدا مفعولا ثم رددنا لكم الكرة عليهم وأمددناكم بأموال وبنين وجعلناكم أكثر نفيرا إن أحسنتم أحسنتم لأنفسكم وإن أسأتم فلها فإذا جاء وعد الآخرة ليسوءوا وجوهكم وليدخلوا المسجد كما دخلوه أول مرة وليتبروا ما علوا تتبيرا عسى ربكم أن يرحمكم وإن عدتم عدنا وجعلنا جهنم للكافرين حصيرا إن هذا القرآن يهدي للتي هي أقوم ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا كبيرا وأن الذين لا يؤمنون بالآخرة أعتدنا لهم عذابا أليما ويدعو الإنسان بالشر دعاءه بالخير وكان الإنسان عجولا وجعلنا الليل والنهار آيتين فمحونا آية الليل وجعلنا آية النهار مبصرة لتبتغوا فضلا من ربكم ولتعلموا عدد السنين والحساب وكل شيء فصلناه تفصيلا وكل إنسان ألزمناه طائره في عنقه ونخرج له يوم القيامة كتابا يلقاه منشورا اقرأ كتابك كفى بنفسك اليوم عليك حصيبا من اهتدى فإنما يهتدي لنفسه ومن ضل فإنما يضل عليها ولا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى وما كنا معذبين حتى نبعث رسولا وإذا أردنا أن نهلك قرية أمرنا متر فيها ففسقوا فيها فحق عليه القول فدمرناها تدميرا. وكم أهلكنا من القرون من بعد نوح وكفى بربك بذنوب عباده خبيرا بصيرا. من كان يريد العاجلة عجلنا له فيها ما نشاء لمن نريد ثم جعلنا له جهنم يصلاها مذموما مدحورا. ومن أراد الآخرة وسعى لها سعيها وهو مؤمن فأولئك كان سعيهم مشكورا. كلا نمد هؤلاء وهؤلاء من عطاء ربك وما كان عطاء ربك محظورا. انظر كيف فضلنا بعضهم على بعض وللآخرة أكبر درجات وأكبر تفضيلا. لا تجعل مع الله إلها آخر فتقعد مذموما مخذولا. وقضى ربك ألا تعبدوا إلا إياه وبالوالدين إحسانا إما يبلغن عندك الكبر أحدهما أو كلاهما فلا تقل لهما أف ولا تنهرهما وقل لهما قولا كريما. واخفض لهما جناح الذل من الرحمة وقل رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. ربكم أعلم بما في نفوسكم إن تكونوا صالحين فإنه كان للأوابين غفورا. وآت ذا القربى حقه والمسكين وابن السبيل ولا تبذر تبذيرا. إن المبذرين كانوا إخوان الشياطين وكان الشيطان لربه كفورا. وإما تعرضن عنهم ابتغاء رحمة من ربك ترجوها فقل لهم قولا ميسورا. ولا تجعل يدك مغلولة إلى عنقك ولا تبسطها كل البسط فتقعد ملوما محسورا. إن ربك يبسط الرزق لمن يشاء ويقدر إنه كان بعباده خبيرا بصيرا. ولا تقتلوا أولادكم خشية إملاق نحن نرزقهم وإياكم إن إن قتلهم كان خطأ كبيرا ولا تقربوا الزنا إنه كان فاحشة وساء سبيلا ولا تقتلوا النفس التي حرم الله إلا بالحق ومن قتل مظلوما فقد جعلنا لوليه سلطانا فلا يسرف في القتل إنه كان منصورا ولا تقربوا مال اليتيم إلا بالتي هي أحسن حتى يبلغ أشده وأوفوا بالعهد إن العهد كان مسؤولا وأوفوا الكيل إذا كلتم وزنوا بالقسطاس المستقيم ذلك خير وأحسن تأويلا ولا تقف ما ليس لك به علم إن السمع والبصر والفؤاد كل أولئك كان عنه مسؤولا ولا تمش في الأرض مرحا إنك لن تخرق الأرض ولن تبلغ الجبال طولا كل ذلك كان سيئه عند ربك مكروها ذلك مما أوحى إليك ربك من الحكمة ولا تجعل مع الله إلها آخر فتلقى في جهنم ملوما مدحورا أفأسفاكم ربكم بالبنين واتخذ من الملائكة إناثا إنكم لتقولون قولا عظيما ولقد صرفنا في هذا القرآن ليذكروا وما يزيدهم إلا نفورا قل لو كان معه آلهة كما يقولون إذا لابتغوا إلى ذي العرش سبيلا سبحانه وتعالى عما يقولون علوا كبيرا تسبح له السماوات السبع والأرض ومن فيهن وإن من شيء إلا يسبح بحمده ولكن لا تفقهون تسبيحهم إنه كان حليما غفورا وإذا قرأت القرآن جعلنا بينك وبين الذين لا يؤمنون بالآخرة حجابا مستورا وجعلنا على قلوبهم أكنة أن يفقهوه وفي آذانهم وقرا وإذا ذكرت ربك في القرآن وحده ولوا على أدبارهم نفورا نحن أعلم بما يستمعون به إذ يستمعون إليك وإذ هم نجوى وإذ هم نجوى إذ يقول الظالمون إن تتبعون إلا رجلا مسحورا انظر كيف ضربوا لك الأمثال فضلوا فلا يستطيعون سبيلا وقالوا أإذا كنا عظاما ورفاتا أإنا لمبعوثون خلقا جديدا قل كونوا حجارة أو حديدا أو خلقا مما يكبر في صدوركم فسيقولون من يعيدنا قل الذي فطركم أول مرة فسينغضون إليك رؤوسهم ويقولون متاه قل عسى أن يكون قريبا يوم يدعوكم فتستجيبون بحمده وتظنون إن لبثتم إلا قليلا صدق الله العظيم. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تباركت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم صل على محمد وآله ألف مرة. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر